South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My amendment gives another member of the Biden administration's paid employees a chance for volunteerism and doing well for mankind. Reduces the salary of Deb Haaland, who is the Secretary of Interior, to $1. She is currently making $221,400. She holds extreme land and energy views like support for the Green New Deal and opposition to the Keystone XL pipeline. We are being forced to buy from OPEC countries that hate America, that's funding Hamas now, and that's what this lady was for, doing away with the Keystone pipeline. She's used the power of the Department of the Interior to implement her radical agenda at the expense of hardworking Americans. Under her leadership, she has shut down pipelines, delayed federally mandated onshore and offshore leases, repealed common sense regulations, shuttered mining products, and much more, with no regard for how these actions have and will continue to raise energy costs, eliminate American jobs, and harm our national security, and increase reliance on foreign energy sources. We should not spend another dollar of taxpayer money funding her salary. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from South Carolina reserves. For what purposes does the gentleman from Montana seek recognition? For what purposes does the gentleman from Idaho seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I claim time in opposition.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I listened very carefully so far. So far, I haven't heard anything that is not a policy difference. And again, I will repeat, elections have consequences. And again, I will tell you, I don't think this is constitutional. I don't believe it's ever been litigated. But it's a way of getting around the fact that we don't have the ability to fire somebody within the administrative branch of government. Now, if this had been someone like the EM director that was caught stealing suitcases at airports and that kind of stuff, I got no problem with that. He needs to be fired, and he was fired. But so far, I haven't heard anything that would indicate that she is doing, that the secretary is doing any more than carrying out the policies for which she was hired. Again, elections have consequences. Instead of doing these types of amendments, why don't we get busy and try to elect a new administration in about 14 months? I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Idaho reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized.
Speaker, I yield as much time as needed for my good friend from Montana, Mr. Rosendale.
The gentleman from Montana is recognized.
Thank you very much, Representative Norman, and thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And possibly we will shed some light on some allegations and problems that would raise to the level that the gentleman would support for removing the salary from Ms. Haaland. Prior to joining the current administration, Secretary Haaland had close ties with the Pueblo Action Alliance, a New Mexico-based organization known for its involvement in environmental and social justice extremism. The Pueblo Action Alliance argues that America's economic and political systems must be dismantled and believes that America is irredeemable because there is no opportunity to reform a system that isn't founded on good morals or values. That's who she is associated with. But we're not done yet. Secretary Haaland's daughter is now employed with Pueblo Action Alliance, participating in lobbying trips to Washington, D.C., and protest, calling for the stop of all oil and gas development. This relationship raises questions about the influence this organization may have on Secretary's decision-making within her role. In January, the department received a FOIA request for all communications between Secretary Haaland's daughter and the Department of Interior officials describing her lobbying efforts. The department has still not produced the requested information, failing to meet their statutory obligations. Secretary Haaland's husband also consulted for and previously been employed by an organization that receives a significant portion of its funding from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. The Bureau of Indian Affairs falls under Secretary Haaland's purview as Secretary of the Interior, presenting another clear conflict of interest. Extremely convenient. In light of these alarming factors, it is my firm belief that Secretary Haaland is ill-suited for the position of Secretary of Interior, and I hope that this amendment will be adopted. I yield back to my good friend from South Carolina.
Gentleman from Idaho.
I thank the gentleman. So far, I've heard accusations, but I haven't heard anything. Has she been convicted of any of this kind of stuff? I don't know. I haven't heard of any of that. And believe me, I disagree with the Secretary on a lot of issues. So far, all I've heard is policy. I would yield to the gentlelady from Maine.
The gentleman yields to the gentlewoman from Maine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the chairman for yielding. I just wanted to say that, once again, this idea of asking public servants to be volunteers to serve for $1 actually carries no weight until all of the members of Congress are also willing to serve for $1. It's completely impractical, and it would mean that only a few people would have the opportunity to serve as members of Congress or to be in the executive branch. And also to criticize Deb Haaland, a woman who I was very proud to serve with in the House of Representatives, who we were very pleased to have her here as one of the first Native American women elected to Congress, but then to go on to lead the Department of Interior as a Native American woman who also has oversight of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, who has so much personal experience, but also experience within her own community, who has a deep love of our public lands, of our natural systems, and in my opinion has done a fantastic job. This is insulting, it's petty. We shouldn't even be here standing at this hour of the night talking about such a highly regarded and well-respected public servant. So I thoroughly oppose this amendment, and I yield back.
Gentlewoman from Maine yields back. The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, how much time do I have left?
You have 1 minute.
I yield time to, again, my good friend from Montana, Mr. Rosendale.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much, my good friend from South Carolina. Just to shed a little bit more information on the subject that I was speaking of, it is very difficult to prove wrongdoing when the person who is committed the wrongdoing will not provide the documentation for which the oversight can be conducted. You can't see the document, so you cannot see exactly what arrangements have been made between her daughter, the lobbying efforts that took place, and we certainly can track, though, that her husband is working for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, being compensated by them. And if we don't do anything except create the perception around this place of integrity, we've got to do a better job. And that has not even been created. I yield back to my good friend from South Carolina.
The gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Idaho is recognized. Gentleman from Idaho yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from South Carolina. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes
Request a recorded vote.